Welcome to Chautauqua People. My name is John V. My guest today may be familiar to those of you who are regular viewers of Chautauqua People. It's Ira Cooperman. Several of our regular viewers have stopped us along the way and said, tell us about yourselves, what your story is, where you came from, and how this program came to be. So we thought it would be appropriate to interview each other's, and Ira is the first in the saddle getting the interview. He's the one who experiences this unusual side of the table. And Ira, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you began life, and how you came to Chautauqua.
Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, this is really different, John. It really is. It is fun. And first of all, I want to say I want everyone to know that this program, Chautauqua People, was your idea, and it was a good idea. We've done it now about 32, 33 times, and over a period of 3 years, it's been exciting. It's been fun, and I'm happy to be your co-host with you. I was born in Manhattan several years ago, and I grew up there for only 5 years. And I really grew up in Los Angeles, and I'm a true Californian. You know, the land of fruit and nuts, that's me. I'm a little weird, a little strange, but I really enjoyed California. I really did enjoy the Los Angeles area. Then I went to college in San Francisco, and after college there was a thing called the draft, and I served in the military. I was an Air Force intelligence officer for about 4.5 years, and came back to Los Angeles, my hometown, and served as a reporter, a newspaper reporter for the Los Angeles Times. Did a lot of other things along the way as well. I had a 35-year career as a fundraiser. I have initials after my name, CFRE, which stand for Certified Fundraising Executive. And I've raised well over $100 million for a number of nonprofit organizations. And one of the things I do at Chautauqua is I'm a captain of a team of solicitors trying to raise money for the institution.
Right, for the Chautauqua Fund.
Yep.
So how did you get to Chautauqua?
That's an interesting story, too, because I wasn't looking to come to Chautauqua, but my daughter was. My daughter at the time was 16. She was going into her senior year of high school, and she really wanted to go someplace during the summertime before her senior year to decide whether or not she really wanted to study piano in college. Mm-hmm. And it was recommended to me by several musician friends of mine that Chautauqua would be a good place for her, and so I did. She was accepted, and I did drive her here back in 1996, 95 maybe, 95. Summer of 1995, I brought her here, and I fell in love with the place, and I've been coming ever since. I didn't retire from full-time employment until the year 2010, so up until then I could only come here a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But since retiring, I've come for the entire season, and I love it. I really, really do love it.
Right. What is the best part of Chautauqua for you?
Well, there are lots of things at Chautauqua. As you know, the biggest problem at Chautauqua is what are you going to do at any one moment, since there's so many things going on simultaneously. Right. I love teaching. I've been teaching special studies courses for the last 13 years. This summer I'm teaching 5 special studies courses. I love the orchestra. The Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra, I think, is a great orchestra, and the classical music is definitely my favorite. But you know, there's popular music Friday night, and there's sometimes light classical music Saturday night, and the orchestra is magnificent. It really, really is great. And finally, I love the people. Everyone comes to Chautauqua for basically the same reason: to veg out, to meet other interesting people, to learn about things you don't know, and to live, to be a better person. Tom Becker is always encouraging us to do that which we don't know, and I certainly have loved learning about things that I didn't know before I came to Chautauqua.
Right, and he speaks about this advancing the best of human values, and I think he's absolutely correct on that. Ira, we sort of had an overture here, giving an overview of yourself. Let's go back and take a look at some specific items.
Sure.
I wonder if you could tell me a little more about your military experience, how you got your commission, where you served, what were your greatest accomplishments and frustrations?
Right. I decided after I graduated from college that I did not want to be drafted, that I wanted to volunteer and have some control over my life. And so I volunteered for the Air Force, and the Air Force said that if I graduated from officer training school, that they would send me to intelligence school, which is the closest thing to what I majored in college, which was international relations. And I had our college represented Laos in the Model United Nations, so I had a lot of knowledge about Southeast Asia. And this was back in 1963, 64. At any rate, I knew there was a war there. I knew there was a war brewing in Vietnam, and I ended up joining the Air Force, graduating from officers training school, graduated from the Armed Forces Air Intelligence Training Center at Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, and my first base that I was assigned to in active duty was Hanscom Field, just outside of Boston in Lexington, Massachusetts, which was an interesting experience. And then from there I was sent to Vietnam. I arrived in Saigon, December 1965, just when the big push began. I arrived there. There were fewer than 100,000 men in country. By the time I left, there were over 200,000. And I spent about 4 or 5 months in Saigon, and then I spent about 6 months in Udon, in Thailand, way up in northeast Thailand, working with the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency, who were very interested in what was going on in Laos. And since I had studied Laos in college, it really came in handy, and I ended up working with the different intelligence agencies. Came back to the States, finished up my 4.5 years in the service at Shaw Air Force Base in Sumter, South Carolina, and got out with an honorable discharge, but I'm happy for the experience. It was the military experience, as you know from your own military experience. It was very interesting.
Right. How were you changed by the military experience?
I think I was transformed in a lot of ways. I had a partner who was also a briefing officer with me in Udon, Thailand. We did the same basic job on and off. We were 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and one day we were both asked if we wanted to go out on a certain mission, and we both wanted to go. We flipped a coin, and he went on the mission rather than me, and he and his plane and the other 7 men with him didn't come back. They all died. That was a big thing for me, to realize that I had a sense of mortality that I never thought about when I was 25, 26 years old. And that was a little bit of a transformational experience. And it also made me want to remember people. It wanted me to, it kind of encouraged me to remember the guys who didn't come back. And that had a big impact on me, I would say. Also, I felt very strongly that somebody needs to be telling the American people what really went on in Vietnam. And I teach a course almost every year at Chautauqua on the Vietnam War. This year we're teaching a course called Uncovering the Lessons of the Vietnam War. Why we should care, why we should still care about Vietnam. And I feel strongly that Americans need to revisit these things, revisit wars, revisit incidents that have happened in the past, so that we don't get involved in things that we shouldn't get involved in the future. I don't think we've learned that lesson, but we try. We try to teach people.
Right. Now, you stress the importance of remembering people. Can you tie this to the experience of Chautauqua people?
Sure. We have so many good friends here who are unfortunately no longer with us. And the very first interview I did for our program, Chautauqua People, was with Warren L. Hickman. Warren passed away this past March at age 94. Was a World War II veteran, served on General Eisenhower's staff. Was a wonderful man. He was history. He was walking history. And it was a wonderful thing for me to be able to interview him and to become friends with him. His memorial service at the Hall of Philosophy is going to be July 17th at 2 o'clock, and I'm honored to be able to speak at his memorial service. But we have many people at Chautauqua who served. People like Kenny Frayden served in World War II. He may not have been on Eisenhower's staff, but he was there. And there's so many others who are unfortunately not with us today, but who did their duty and who were really good men. And I've had the honor of meeting many of them here at Chautauqua, and that's made a difference in my life too.
I think about our first year's production, and when we started the program, both of us had relationships with Warren Hickman. They were a very different approach, and my family and his go back 3 generations. But indeed, we decided that it was appropriate to record him as a important Chautauqua person. I was thinking I would put him in front of a camera, and then saw the advertisements for Access Channel 5 saying the studios are open to the public. So my sister and I came up here, we took a look at it. Chuck Kelsey walked us through and said he would be happy to do the interview. You and I discussed the situation with Warren, and it was clear you knew him better, so you should do the interview. And afterward, Chuck and Devin, who is a room manager here, said, let's do some more of these, and we were off. I think about it, that first year we looked at people who've made enormous contributions to Chautauqua, and we've lost half of our first year's production. Jim Roselli,
Ken
Fraden, and Warren.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad we've done it with those.
Yeah, we've had some really great experiences on this program, no question about it. And I've also been honored to be able to interview people like our music director and the conductor of the orchestra, Russ and Milanov.
Right.
And some of our former leaders like Jay Lessinger, our former opera director. And it's been fun. You get a chance to see people in a different environment, and you get a chance to have them open up a little bit. And it's been great. It's really, and I really appreciate it. So I'm glad that we started this program.
Yeah. Now here's a tough one for you.
Sure.
When you're doing an interview, is there anything you're afraid of? Some great fear you have?
Just, I guess, that the person all of a sudden is going to start coughing and not be able to talk or be able to respond in some way. No, I don't think I've ever had a problem. I don't think I've ever been afraid that I would have a problem. I think the most fun interview I ever had was last season when I had 3 of the 4 Miller brothers.
Right.
Which I think is on this week, if I remember correctly.
Coming up.
And that was a lot of fun, getting these 3 guys around this table like this, and talking all at once, of course, so you couldn't hear any of them, you know. But it was a lot of fun, and I really do love them. No, I've been very lucky. We've had a lot of interesting people, and Jim Roselli, you know, took over the interview. He was such a professional radio interviewer and radio announcer that interviewing him was impossible. He just took over the interview, and that was great. He saved me. That was fine.
And he talked about a bunch of personal stuff that at the time we probably didn't want to hear, but now as that he's gone,
sure,
it has so much greater value.
Oh yeah, and it's amazing. You can watch all of our programs on YouTube. I never knew anything about YouTube before we started doing this, but it's great to go online and then just to go into YouTube and then to Google Chautauqua People, and you can see all of our 30 some odd programs. So it's wonderful. I also think about the time that I interviewed Mark Russell, and it was just one joke after the other. You know, I mean, it was great interviewing Mark and talking about his personal life. I mean, who knew that he was a Marine? Mark Russell was a Marine, was stationed on Okinawa.
Never knew it.
After World War II, you know. And but we told a lot of jokes. It was a lot of fun.
Indeed, and he even gave you had no question asking what his real name was, and he gave it to you.
That's right. And many people know it's not Russell. That's right. Rusland.
Yeah, and I thought about it. If we really want to make trouble for the crew who we always ask for an indulgence, and they let us off the hook, it would have been to sneak a grand piano in here.
Oh, that would have been great.
And have Mark play it, and then tell Chuck, well, this is your new prop. Find a place for it.
Right, that would have been fun.
Yeah, but maybe we can borrow something from the opera if they have some musical instruments.
Yeah, maybe we'll interview the new director of the opera, Stephen Osgood. That would be fun.
And indeed, I'm working on that. I think I've got a contact. Good. So by the end of the season, we'll have something lined up for him. And maybe that we do it beginning of next season. But I think that one's going to come along for us without any trouble.
Okay. You don't have any other questions for me, do you?
Oh, I have only a million. But you know, it's like both of us want to talk here, and I know you'll talk when it's time to ask me questions. So tell me about some of the places you've lived in. What's been unusual about them?
Well, I think the most unusual situation. I was in Saigon, and you know, I was in the military, and I ended up playing the cello with the Vietnamese Conservatory of Music. That certainly was a little different, and played as a solo in a concert in Saigon. But I think the most unusual place I ever lived is someplace I came back to. About 8 months ago, I came back to the Philadelphia area. My daughter finally said, "Yes, Dad, you could really help us if you moved back here, and if you could help babysit my wonderful 3-year-old granddaughter, Lucy June, who's gorgeous. Blonde hair, blue eyes, everybody knows. I just love her." And I said, "Great, I'd be happy to move back." And so last November, I picked myself up from Clinton and Utica area in upstate New York and moved back to the Philadelphia area where I had lived for about 20 years, and where my daughter was born, and where her daughter was born. And I moved back, and my daughter found me an apartment, and it's only 2 miles from her house, so she can call anytime and say, "Dad, I need to do some errands or whatever, could you come over?" And I'm happy to do it, happy to come over. So I've been babysitting my granddaughter. And there's this other woman who lived in Florida, and she has a mother who's 96, and she decided to come back to the Philadelphia area also. In fact, she graduated from the same high school that my daughter graduated, Cheltenham High School in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. And I never would have met Carol if I hadn't have moved back. She wouldn't have met me. And we have a wonderful relationship, which I'm proud to talk about on camera, which she might not really appreciate, but it's made all the difference in the world to me. It's made a great deal of difference in my life. I've actually learned patience, and I think she's made me into a better man. We'll see if she agrees with us, if she ever sees the CD of this program.
Yeah.
But moving back has been a big deal. It's made my relationship with my daughter and my son-in-law much better. It's been to be with my granddaughter, my darling 3-year-old granddaughter, has been wonderful. And sometimes, the old saying about location sometimes determines your destiny is really true. And I think moving back to the Philadelphia area has determined my destiny. And I'm looking forward to whatever time I have left to enjoy it, whether it's with my sister, my daughter, with my granddaughter, or with Carol. It's a good life. I love it.
And so that works out fine for you.
Yep.
Now, you've been coming to Chautauqua since your daughter interviewed for the music school.
Right, she was a pianist, piano student here in 1995.
Right, and you're now come for the entire season.
I do, and love it.
Right, and during this season, your classes are a big part of your life here. Could you tell me a little bit about your classes and what you've learned from them?
They are. As you know, because you've been in classes here too, that teachers here, instructors at Chautauqua, tend to learn more from their students than they do just by being instructors. And I certainly have learned more from my students in my classes. Most of my classes have to do with either national security, classes about intelligence, the Central Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, or history, history of the Vietnam War, history of privacy, of security. And I've learned more in studying for my classes, certainly, but I really have enjoyed the students that I've had in my classes. And in almost every class, I've had people that knew a lot more about the subject that I've been teaching than I do. I've had people like Dan Golden, the former administrator of NASA, who reported to the President of the United States, the longest-serving NASA director in history. I've had lots of times Mark Russell in class, and that's been a lot of fun. But we have learned a lot, and I'd like to think that members of my class also have gotten more than just knowledge out of the class. They've also built relationships. They've also developed friendships in the class. And this season we're teaching 5 classes, and I always teach with a friend. So 4 of the classes I'm teaching with Bob Hopper, a retired State Department and Foreign Service officer.
And former interviewee on Chautauqua.
And one of our guys that we interviewed, yeah. And the other class I'm teaching is with Chaz Kirshner, who you interviewed on our program. And Chaz worked for the National Security Agency for 35 years.
Right.
So we've had some really interesting people, and the classes have gone really well. This summer I'm teaching weeks 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8.
Right.
So if you're watching this out there, folks, you still want to take a class, it's still possible to take one of my classes this summer.
By all means, take it. And when you do these classes, how do you
Approach it?
determine what content you're going to offer?
Well, one of the things we love to do is talk about films, and one of the classes we usually offer is a class about Hollywood and Washington,
Right.
Films about politics.
Right.
So we pull out some of the really great old films like All the King's Men from 1950 with Broderick Crawford, or a more recent film, All the President's Men with Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. But films that have some value, some enduring value that you can learn some lessons from. And people love movies. You know, we have a great cinema on the Chautauqua campus.
We do.
Billy does a great job bringing films to our movie theater. And sometimes Bob and I will actually introduce films at the movie theater, at the cinema.
Right.
But as far as our class is concerned, it's pretty easy to find a lot of good films. And even in the classes on Vietnam or the classes on intelligence agencies, we'll always bring some films and show some films that really really demonstrate what we're trying to, the points that we're trying to get across. Bob and I feel that people these days are learning more from movies than they are from books. Books are very important, certainly very important at Chautauqua, but it's amazing how people really learn history from movies these days, whether it's correct or not, whether it's accurate or not.
Right.
People are really learning more from, I think, from movies than they are from books.
Right. I'm convinced that the communication medium of our time is a video, be it as a YouTube kind of thing or a full-length movie. And as we came up with good formal educations at the time, writing letters with fountain pens and reading books, that stuff was largely archaic.
Yeah.
And
Our grandchildren aren't going to do that, that's
No.
for sure.
no. And I've had students in class talk about some school districts are no longer teaching their kids how to write, but simply how to key things in, which I think is immensely upsetting. But you have to say, are we being archaic, or what's the appropriate item here?
Well, we're also continuing some traditions that I think are worthwhile. I love music. I used to play the cello for a long time. I really haven't picked it up lately. And I still play the piano. And I'm passionate about music. I really love music. I love to see our students here on the grounds at Chautauqua playing music and learning about music. And those are traditions that I hope will never go out of style.
Right. Now, do you belong to any musical support groups?
I do.
Could you tell us about them?
Sure. You know, at Chautauqua, we have so many organizations. We have Friends of the Theater, and I belong to Friends of the Theater also, but I'm active on the board of the Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra League. That's the new name for the Partners organization, the former Partners organization, now called Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra League. And we're very active. We try to get the musicians to meet people as much as possible. We have a number of coffee clatches, meet the musicians backstage, meet them in Smith Wilkes, all sorts of opportunities to meet the musicians. And we do support the orchestra. We're a wonderful group of people that support the Chautauqua Symphony because we think it's a wonderful orchestra and we want to do everything we can to support it. I've also been a member of the Literary Arts Friends. I'm also a writer, and the people that are supporting writing and supporting reading should be supported on our grounds because they do a wonderful job too. I love the Poetry Day. We do a day where everyone reads their favorite poetry in the Hall of Philosophy. It's wonderful. And there's so many other organizations. I'm active with VACI. Bob and I tend to work with a couple of students every year who are artists, and we're kind of like adopted parents and help out the students wherever we can. And I love art. I used to be an art docent at a museum, and I think our two art galleries, two buildings, are fantastic, both Stroll and Kellogg. And every chance I get, I just wander in there and look at the wonderful art that we have. There's so much, as you know, so much on our grounds to do. And some people, you know, don't do very much, or they just go to the lectures, or they just take a class. But there's so much to do, and I want to do it all. I love it all.
Mm-hmm. And I think our Chautauqua people, viewers, have benefited sometimes with those contacts. So last year you brought John Nakamatsu in for an interview.
Right.
And we think about getting somebody of that caliber who is so darn important in music and where it's going, is young and articulate, and was fun just to spend a little time coming and going, and that's a result of those contacts.
Yeah. John Nakamatsu is a fantastic pianist, a gold medal winner from the Van Cliburn competition several years ago, and he was born in California of Japanese parents, but a wonderful, wonderful pianist. And what most people don't know is that when he graduated from Stanford, he didn't graduate in music, he graduated in German. He has a bachelor's degree and a master's in teaching German. And that's what he did right after he graduated from college. He taught German in high school, and just a wonderful teacher, because he learned how to be a teacher when he graduated from Stanford. And now, you know, he's a great pianist. He's coming back this year. He's going to be playing the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto with the Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra, and he's going to be spending at least a week with our students, teaching them, and they'll get a lot out of it. You know, we have a lot of Asian students that come here, especially Asian pianists, and they just love John. They really do, which I think is a natural thing.
Right.
So there are some wonderful instructors on our campus, on our grounds. We have people that come from all over. I know this week we have Jerome Lowenthal coming as a pianist, and it's exciting. It really is. I just, this afternoon, I was in the piano play-in, where each one of the piano students played their favorite piece or played one piece of music on the piano. It was just really exciting to hear these talented young people, some of whom just graduated from high school, and some of them are only in college for a year or two. They're just wonderfully talented, and it's great to do whatever we can to support them.
Right. Ira, we're just about out of time.
Really?
We are.
Amazing.
And we can't believe the way this thing is going. Is there anything else we need to add?
Just that, you know, we wouldn't be here today without Chautauqua, and it's an incredible place. Everyone says it defies description.
It does.
And it's true, it does. But you don't need to describe something in order to enjoy it. And I think for me, it's made a big difference in my life and the life of my family, my daughter and my granddaughter, and I want to do whatever I can to see it continue. So here's to Chautauqua, here's to our program, to continuing it for as long as we can. I think it's, I congratulate you and thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, this has been great fun, Ira. Do come back and let's have a conversation
Thanks,
like this
John.
in the future.
Thanks very much.
This has been Chautauqua People. I'm John V., and my guest has been Ira Cooperman.